Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich is trying to stop a one-day strike called by a major trade union. Smotrich has asked the Attorney General to request that the courts block the strike planned for Monday. He says it would have significant economic consequences. It comes after opposition leader Yair Lapid called for a complete government shutdown with the aim of pressuring the government into signing a ceasefire and captive deal with Hamas.
Right now, I'm calling for a general, total strike. For now, it'll be tomorrow. We'll see where things go. It is not a simple matter to shut down the economy, and you know how much responsibility I've shown the last 11 months. No more. I call on the people of Israel to take to the streets this evening. Tomorrow, leave the workplaces. I call on all economic organizations in the state of Israel, everyone, to join the strike. Tomorrow, we must shout the cry of our beloved country. We must raise the cry of our hostages, our displaced, our dead. The state of Israel must be returned to normal.
Phyllis Bennis is a fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies and an international advisor to Jewish Voice for Peace. She joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the programme. Firstly, what do you make of these protests in Israel in terms of the scale and intensity?
Well, it seems this is the biggest set of protests that we've seen since the beginning of this round of horrific assaults on Gaza that began after October 7th. The question will be whether the quantitative increase, it's now up to about 500,000 apparently, whether that becomes a qualitative difference in the impact on government decisions. The combination of the huge outpouring of participation with the possibility of a general strike tomorrow means that the impact may be quite big. But the only real thing that we know will have a qualitative shift in Israeli policy is when the United States stops sending more weapons. We haven't seen that yet.
You mentioned there that the call for a one-day strike. I mean, how significant could that be?
Well, they're talking about a strike that would involve the health sector, shutting down the airport, the international airport, which is very key for the Israeli economy, as well as there's been calls from the tech sector and from manufacturing to shut down factories and shut down the tech world. Those are huge components of the Israeli economy. So that means there will be an impact on the government. Whether it's enough to change the position of Netanyahu and his closest allies remains very unclear. But that is a very big step to take. That hasn't been happening regularly. This hasn't happened in at least a couple of years. So this is a big deal.
Well, indeed. I mean, when you consider all of this, then, what is Benjamin Netanyahu's actual strategy here, then, do you think?
I think his strategy is to stay in office so that he doesn't end up in prison. I think this has everything to do with his own personal commitment. He's using this excuse of we need to keep troops in the Philadelphia corridor. But the chief of staff himself of the IDF has said that the IDF would know how to enter and return to the corridor at the end of the first 6 weeks of the ceasefire, which is problematic in the sense that it means they are seriously not considering the possibility of a permanent ceasefire, something that is clearly needed. But in terms of the difference between Netanyahu's position and the others in the cabinet, you have the chief of staff himself saying that there are, in his words, enough constraints in the talks already. You don't need to add another. That means that he thinks that there are enough of these decisions going in the Israeli position that they don't have to stop the talks to get any more concessions. That's what Netanyahu's actions are doing. He's essentially stopping the talks to get more concessions. And here is his own chief of staff saying, you don't need to do that. We've got enough concessions.
Israel says it recovered the bodies of 6 captives. Hamas says they were killed by Israeli bombing. How do you see the ongoing issue of captives actually playing out?
Well, I think that the best way to bring the captives home is to have a permanent ceasefire. That's what will get the rest of them who are still alive out safely. I don't think we can tell yet exactly how these 6 died. I don't know who was present during the autopsies, if there were any representatives of the families, other representatives of the hostage organizations that were there. We have no idea yet. All we know is that the military says that they were shot by Hamas or others who may have been holding them. But we have no independent information about that. But clearly, the best way to bring all the hostages home, to get Palestinian prisoners released who are being held, over 10,000 are being held illegally inside Israeli prisons, 6,000 of them without any charges being dropped, without a possibility of getting them back, the hostages out, and stopping this genocidal war that Israel is waging in Gaza. The best way to do that is for the United States to stop sending more weapons, because whatever statements come from the president, from the vice president, from anyone else, from Congress, none of it matters as long as the United States continues to send weapons that make it possible for Israel to continue this war. That's the one qualitative distinction that can happen, and we have seen no indication yet that it's about to.
Phyllis Bennis, we very much appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.